Welcome back. The show's called Chequered Flag and I'm Sonali Krishna.
And I'm Karun Chandok.
So Karun, both of us, were privileged enough to witness the inaugural Grand Prix for India last year. But do you think year 2 of the Indian Grand Prix will kind of attract that kind of traction, excitement, or was it just the novelty factor that we saw such a big buzz around the Indian Grand Prix?
Just looking at what's been happening in the build-up to the race, it does look like the numbers in terms of the actual audiences on the day might be a bit down from last year. But I still think we'll have an 80% capacity, which historically, if you look at the other recently, joined venues onto the calendar, Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Turkey, China, that isn't the case. I remember being in Turkey on the grid in 2009, and I counted 37 people in the grandstand.
Oh God!
Yeah, and I'm fairly confident that's not going to be the case. And again, in Shanghai, they've had to shut all the grandstands. They've just covered it with Visit China advertising because they couldn't sell any tickets there.
So that's the big question really. Will year 2 of the Indian Grand Prix be able to live up to India's stellar performance in year 1? Tara Kapoor spoke to a host of experts to decode those numbers for you.
$325 million in race hosting fees. $313 million for television rights. $145 million for trackside advertising and sponsorship. $50 million from corporate hospitality. $35 million from GP2 and GP3. And $105 million from various miscellaneous sources. That's a whopping $973 million in revenues that went into the Formula One management's coffers in 2011. And India's inaugural Grand Prix contributed a very sizable $88 million to that grand total last year. But now that year 1 is over and the novelty factor of hosting the first ever Formula One Grand Prix in India has died down, will the second Grand Prix be able to match up to the bar set last year?
The second year normally has the lowest spectator turnout because people haven't got used to, standing in lines, the traffic systems. Television has had a lot to play with that because Formula One is largely a television sport. So people feel that even if they don't go up to the venue, they can actually see a good part of it on TV.
They should feel absolutely lucky if they were to generate even 70% of what they did last year. The wow factor is gone. People who came there, people who understand Formula One, didn't much care for it because it's a very specialized sport. You must understand the nuances. It's not for everybody. It's not about cars going round and round for them.
Barring title sponsor Bharti Airtel, most companies haven't increased their marketing spends for the event.
We're getting a lot of positive feedback from our customers and from our fans. We're now knocking on 1.2 million fans, which makes us the single largest F1 community in the world. Many of these things are indicative of the fact that there's a deep and abiding interest in the sport.
And as for ticket sales, 2 weeks before the event, only 65% of the inventory was sold. And that's after the prices of tickets dropped by a whopping 40%. The price of a seat in the main grandstand, which accommodates 20,000 people, has dropped to 21,000 rupees from 35,000, while ticket prices for the general stands for the 3-day event start at rupees 2,000 this time around, compared to 3,000 rupees last year.
A lot of the tickets were rationalized this year as opposed to last year, and that was done with the view to keep, to get a lot more young folk into the net to popularize motorsport in India, because you can't compare it to any other part of the world which has had motorsports running for many years, and therefore you can charge those premium prices.
In terms of broadcast, however, the picture isn't as grim. In fact, according to ESS, last year the event had an overall reach of 32.7 million viewers in India, compared with 25.5 million for the 2010 season. And they expect that number to go up even more this year. On the advertising front as well, things are looking good for the broadcaster, with inventory sold out and brands like Petronas, Samsung and Vodafone on board as sponsors for the live event. According to media planners, most of these brands have bought deals for the F1 season at approximately 1 crore rupees. Another 14 advertisers, including MRF Tyres, Bharat Petroleum, Sony and India Tourism, are on board as spot buyers, with the going rate at approximately 1 lakh per 10 seconds. The BIC might be the ideal racing track for Formula One, but unless the Indian Grand Prix ups its game in terms of the peripheral activity around the sport, the revenues F1 in India generate will never be able to match up to the rest of the world. The need of the hour would be to take cue from its counterparts in Singapore, with the GP in Macau integrating the glitz, glamour and entertainment seamlessly with the racing. So much so that it's often referred to as the Monaco of the East.
I would kind of estimate 2 years. From first year I said it would be 3 years by the time the interest locally at least dies down. And with the way the world's economy going, I don't know how many, can you get 50,000 people from overseas to come and watch a race in India? I don't think so.
Well, is JP in it for the love of motor racing, or is JP in it to enhance its own core competency? While you digest that, I'm going to take a quick break, but coming up on the other side, we're going to ask the really big question: where are the Indian drivers? Stay tuned.